If you liked the video, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. This video is a deep dive on the Adeptus Custodes Codex character, Valerian. Valerian can be very good into melee heavy list. He can make a unit of Wardens a nightmare to engage in melee with. We will take a look at Valerian's datasheet, as well as 2 units that are best attached to him. Then we will look at all 6 Adeptus Custodes detachments, go through all the rules that can buff Valerian's unit, finish with a score out of 10 for each detachment. Valerian currently is the cheapest Adeptus Custodes character at 110 points as of August 2025. As always, we will start the deep dive by taking a look at the datasheet. Valerian has a movement of 6, toughness of 6, 2-up save with a 4+ invulnerable, 6 wounds, 6 leadership, and an OC of 2. For the range and melee weapons, he has Gnosis, 24-inch range, 3 attacks, hitting on a 2+, strength 4, AP 1, damage 2 with assault. For the melee, we have 7 attacks, hitting on a 2+, strength 8, AP 3, damage 2. For the keywords, we have infantry, character, epic hero, Imperium, shield captain, and Valerian. Valerian can lead Custodian Guard and Wardens, as well as some Forge World units. For his abilities, he has Deep Strike, a 6+ Feel No Pain, Martial Kata, he does have access to sustain hits 1 or lethal hits in the combat phase, Golden Laurels, while this model is leading a unit, each time a melee attack targets that unit, worsen the armor penetration of that attack by 1. Heroes of Lion's Gate, once per battle after making a hit roll, wound roll, or saving roll for this model, you can change the result of that roll to an unmodified 6. The first thing to note is that his melee weapon is AP 3. AP 3 melee is rare with the Adeptus Custodes without a buff. The Blade Champion is the only other AP 3 melee we have. His turn and unmodified roll to a 6 once per game can be useful for a lethal hit or a save. The big reason to take Valerian is the Golden Laurels. -1 AP to incoming melee attacks can cripple the melee output of some units or even factions. He can make a unit of Custodian Guard extra hard to take out. The Custodian Guard can give Valerian reroll wounds of 1 or the wound roll if they're on an objective they control. My favorite unit to run with Valerian is a unit of Wardens. The Wardens still hit very hard with Guardian Spears, 5 attacks each, hitting on a 2+, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2. No reroll wounds, but a once per game 4+ Feel No Pain, and -1 to the wound roll if the incoming attack strength is higher than the Warden's toughness 6. Throw Valerian in the unit for -1 AP in the fight phase. I will mention when a rule helps the Custodian Guard combo. For the most part, we will look at this deep dive, assuming we have Wardens attached to Valerian. Now we will take a look at all 6 detachments and what the rules can do to buff Valerian and his unit. We will start with the Auric Champions. The Auric Champions detachment rule is Assemblage of Might. At the start of your command phase, select 1 unit from your opponent's army. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in Adeptus Custodes character unit from your army makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the wound roll. We have one of our rare units that is actually good in the Auric Champions. Currently, Valerian is the cheapest Custodes character we can attach to a unit to give the unit Assemblage of Might. +1 to the wound helps Valerian in the Custodian Guard shooting, while the Warden's melee becomes a real threat. A decent detachment rule for Valerian's unit. Since Valerian is a named character, we cannot put any enhancements with Valerian. We will move on to the stratagems. Our first stratagem is earning a name for 1 CP in the fight phase. Up to 2 Adeptus Custodes character units from your army that have been not selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, each time a character model in one of your units makes an attack that targets a monster or vehicle unit, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. It does not include the unit Valerian is attached to, the theme of this detachment. Gnosis is AP 3, damage 2, reroll hits and wounds into a vehicle or monster unit, pair it with the detachment rule for +1 to the wound roll. Reroll hits is rare with the Custodes, hitting on a 2+ with lethal hits or sustain hits 1 character model can output some good damage. The next stratagem is Emperor's Auspice for 1 CP. This can be used in your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase, and this will give character models in the unit a 4+ Feel No Pain. This stratagem is best used on a solo character. The 4+ Feel No Pain is only on the character model, so only on Valerian. It can come up when facing a bunch of precision attacks or the whole unit is dead, not a stratagem we will be using every turn. Next up is Slayer of Champions, one Adeptus Custodes character unit from your army that has destroyed your Assemblage of Might target. For 1 CP, select one enemy unit on the battlefield until the start of your next command phase. Each time an Adeptus Custodes character model from your army makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the wound roll. In addition, if the destroyed unit was a character unit, gain 1 CP. This would be much better if we could use it to give the upgraded every character unit gets +1 to the wound roll against that target. As it is now, 1 CP for a character model only Assemblage of Might is not really worth the 1 CP. Every stratagem has its place, this one is just in a faraway place. Next up is Superhuman Reserves for 2 CP, and any phase just after an Adeptus Custodes Warlord model from your army has used an ability on its datasheet or enhancement that says it only can be used once per battle. For 2 CP, you can use that ability again, but you cannot use it in the same phase, and you can only use this stratagem once per battle. Valerian has a once per game ability. It is not worth making him the Warlord and paying 2 CP to reset it once per game. I would rather use this on a Bike Captain, a Lars Captain, or even Trajan Valoris. Lines of the Emperor really takes the shine out of this detachment. The last stratagem I want to talk about is Vigil on ending for 2 CP. You can use this in the fight phase, and this will give your Custodes character model and your unit the Fight on Death ability. In my opinion, this is the worst stratagem in all 36 stratagems we have. 2 CP for the character model to fight on death is awful. We do not have to make a d6 roll, and I would hope not for 2 CP. I have seen stratagems for 2 CP for the entire unit to fight on death without any kind of dice roll either. 2 CP for Valerian to fight on death, 7 attacks, hitting on a 2+, strength 8, AP 3, damage 2. No thanks. 2 of our Adeptus Custodes units get charged. Are we going to use this for 2 CP, or are we going to use counteroffensive to interrupt for 2 CP? My bet goes on that counteroffensive. Valerian is a character, allowing him and his unit to gain +1 to the wound roll when they target the Assemblage of Might target. He adds some nice fight phase survivability. Valerian also has the deep strike ability now. He can rapid ingress for 1 CP during the game. The problem is the detachment itself being bad. I ranked it as my worst detachment in my recent Custodes Detachment rankings video. I give Valerian a 7 out of 10 for the Auric Champions, a decent leader, but nothing too special in this detachment. Then again, what is? Our next detachment is the Null Maiden Vigil. There is no real detachment support for Valerian. He is not a Psychona unit. Valerian with Wardens does add a very tanky unit to a Null Maiden Vigil list. Valerian with Wardens do not have any rules that depend on detachment rules to get better. It is one of the toughest infantry units we could put in a Null Maiden Vigil list. I give Valerian a high score of 8 out of 10 in the Null Maiden Vigil. A good choice to make your list a bit tougher. Next up, we have Lines of the Emperor. The Lines of the Emperor detachment rule is against all odds. Each time an Adeptus Custodes unit from your army, excluding vehicles, makes an attack, if there's no other friendly units within 6 inches of that unit, add 1 to the hit roll and add 1 to the wound roll. My favorite detachment rule, it encourages strong movement with extreme damage output. Valerian with Custodian Guard +1 to the wound shooting is deadly. Throw Valerian with Wardens in this detachment to have a unit that is not only hard to kill, but also very killy itself. Valerian is strength 8 in melee, not a breakpoint that +1 to the wound really makes a difference into vehicles. Still, wound on a 4+ into most vehicles is pretty good. Now on to the Lines of the Emperor stratagems. First up is Defiant to the Last for 1 CP in your fight phase. This will give us a 4+ fight on death for a non-character model, and the character model, Valerian, would have a 2+ fight on death. Fight on death on a 2+ and a 4+ for his unit is great. It helps us counter melee armies or at least play better into them. A unit of Wardens with Valerian and a fight on death might not be worth engaging for our opponent. This could be a unit we can ram right into the middle of the board and dare anyone to come try to take it. Next up is Gilded Champion in any phase just after an Adeptus Custodes model from your army that has used ability on their datasheet that states it can only be used once per battle. You can use that ability one additional time. You cannot use it that same phase, and we cannot use this stratagem on the same Custodes character more than once per battle. In my opinion, Valerian's once per game flip a roll to a 6 is not really worth the 1 CP unless we have lots of extra CP. It is not game defining like a double advance and charge or a double moment shackle. Save the CP for another unit or a different stratagem. Next up is Maneuver and Fire, our simple fallback, shoot and charge stratagem for 1 CP. Fallback, shoot and charge means a bit more in the lines of the Emperor. Our shooting is not as unreliable as it normally is. +1 to the wound on strength 4 shooting is a hefty bonus. Fallback and charge is great in any detachment. Being able to fall back and shoot in lines can tear units apart. Valerian does get 1 extra shot than the normal Guardian Spear at 3 shots, while the Guardian Spears are 2 shots each, the same profile otherwise though. Strength 4, AP 1, damage 2. Next up is Peerless Warrior in the fight phase. This will give the melee weapons in your entire Custodes unit the precision ability. This stratagem is great or useless on most of our stronger melee units. If a character in an enemy unit needs to be taken out, if Valerian is nearby, his unit can use this stratagem to make that enemy character very dead. It is not something we want to use all the time. It will be on those units who really rely on attached characters to buff the unit. Next up is Swift as the Eagle for 1 CP in your opponent's shooting phase, just after an enemy unit has shot one of our Custodes character units, excluding vehicle units. We can make a normal move up to D6 inches. Swift as the Eagle is better used when it is planned out. If I can, I will leave my unit where a low roll of a 1 or 3 can get Valerian's unit to some line of sight, move block, or get on an objective. Do not waste your final CP on a Hail Mary D6 roll unless the game depends on it. Lions is my favorite detachment for the Adeptus Custodes. Valerian is fine in this detachment. The fact that he does not have the best once per game ability, we bring Valerian for the -1 AP in the fight phase. Extra rules on top from a detachment is not the reason we take him. Valerian with Custodian Guard or Wardens works in this detachment. It all depends on what you need. Extra damage or extra survivability. I give Valerian a 7.5 out of 10 in the lines of the Emperor detachment. Our next detachment is Talons of the Emperor. The Talons of the Emperor detachment rule is Revered Companions. Psychona units from your army gain the following ability. Null Aegis, while an Adeptus Custodes unit is within 6 inches of this unit, that unit will gain a 5+ Penal Pain against psychic attacks and mortal wounds. All other Adeptus Custodes units from your army gain the following ability. Deadly Unity, while a Psychona unit is within 6 inches of this unit, each time a model in that Psychona unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. We will always like any rules that protect us from mortal wounds. Valerian with either Guard or Wardens are no different. We do need to be within 6 inches of a Psychona unit to get that 5+ Penal Pain to mortals. It is not as hard or Psychona unit filled as it may seem. A few Witchseeker units in the list with Valerian do a good job of keeping the buff up for the first few turns. Now let's move on to the stratagems for the Talons of the Emperor. The first stratagem is Emperor's Executioners for 2 CP. Until the end of the phase, as long as a model in your unit targets an enemy unit that is below starting strength, add 1 to the wound roll. We know from Lions and Auric that +1 to the wound roll in the fight phase is very strong in the Custodes infantry. It helps a lot with tough vehicles and monsters. The problem with Valerian is he has no way to reduce the cost of stratagems. 2 CP is a heavy cost for +1 to the wound roll, especially with some of the other strong 1 CP stratagems in this detachment. Empiric Severance for 1 CP in your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase, and 1 Adeptus Custodes unit that was selected by one of those attacking units' attacks. That unit will have a 4+ Penal Pain against mortal wounds, but you do need to be within 6 inches of a Psychona unit to use this stratagem. A 4+ Penal Pain is great to have against our hated enemy, the mortal wounds. We do have to be within 6 inches of a Psychona unit to use it, meaning we would already have the detachment rule for the 5+ Penal Pain to psychic and mortal wounds. If a mortal wound bomb is on its way, we may want to use this. Unlike Arcane Genetic Alchemy from the Shieldhost detachment, Empiric Severance has to be used before we take the mortal wounds. Hunt as 1 for 1 CP, once again a fallback, shoot and charge stratagem. Fallback, shoot and charge is great in this detachment, like it is great in all the other detachments that have fallback, shoot and charge. The shooting can be buffed with a stratagem, even Custodian Guard with Valerian, it would not be worth using the 2 CP for the combo. Better to think of this as fallback, shoot some chip shots, and charge. There is not as much defensive potential as some of our other detachments. Valerian with Wardens is still not a fun unit for the opponent to charge into, with fallback, shoot and charge in our back pocket. Shield of Honor for 1 CP. This is the stratagem that allows us to use one of our Custodes infantry units to take the shots for one of our Psychona units. I will be honest, I cannot remember the last time I used this stratagem. I usually have 4 or 5 Psychona units, including a Rhino. It sounds great, but it rarely comes up. The Psychona already have a pretty good 3+ save. We only want to use this on low damage attacks. We don't want to be using this on high damage attacks, killing our expensive Custodes infantry model. If you're going to use this on low damage attacks with low AP. There's no sense in trading a few models from Valerian's unit to save a Psychona unit, so make sure you're not using this on big high damage attacks. Talons Interlock for 1 CP, this can be used on a Custodes infantry, and this will give your ranged attacks +1 strength and +1 AP. Talons Interlocked is one of the best stratagems to buff our infantry shooting. Our weapons are strength 4, AP 1, damage 2. We use this, they are now strength 5, AP 2, damage 2. Much better for killing 3+ save, 2 wound models in cover. If it is Valerian with Wardens, I would save it for one of my units such as Custodian Guard or Lars Terminators. Those units can reroll the wound rolls. The last stratagem I want to talk about is the Talon Pincer for 1 CP. In your opponent's movement phase, just after an enemy unit ends a normal, fallback, or advanced move within 9 inches of Valerian, Valerian's unit can make a normal move up to 6 inches. The best stratagem in the detachment remains the best stratagem for Valerian. The fact that it is a flat 6-inch move is appreciated more now that we have the D6 move in the lines of the Emperor. With a 6-inch move, we can plan out in our prior turn where we may want to move a unit. We can even set up a trap for our opponent. Leave out a unit on purpose to draw in some enemy units for a big go turn in our next turn. Use Talon Pincer to move that unit out of danger if they do take the bait. I do think Valerian makes a good choice for a cheap Custodes character in the Talons of the Emperor. Other than the 6-inch reactive move, there is not a lot of defensive rules in this detachment. Valerian with Wardens adds a very tanky unit for the fight phase. Not as strong as in the Shield Host detachment, still a strong choice for the Talons list. I would take him over a Shield Captain or even Trey in a Talons list. I give Valerian a strong 8.5 out of 10, my next best choice after a Blade Champion to lead a Custodian Guard or Custodian Wardens unit in the Talons of the Emperor. Next up is the Solar Spearhead detachment. The detachment rule revolves around vehicles. Valerian is not a vehicle unit, nor can he join anything to make him a vehicle unit. There are a few stratagems and rules that will work on Valerian with Wardens or Custodian Guard. First, we have Emperor's Vengeance for 1 CP. This will give the unit a 4+ fight on death. One of the few stratagems that do work on infantry units in this detachment. It is also one of the more powerful ones with a 4+ fight on death for 1 CP. The Dreadnoughts in the Solar Spearhead list will fight on death on a 3+. Solar Spearhead is CP hungry. Being a 4+ will make this situational when we want to use this on Valerian's unit. We also have Wrathful Advance for 1 CP in the fight phase just after an Adeptus Custodes unit from your army piles in. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a pile-in move, it can make a D3 +3 pile-in move instead of 3 inches. We could use this to get some extra models into combat, tag another unit, or even grab an objective. The problem is that is a D3 +3 movement, not that reliable. Valerian with a unit of Wardens would make a tanky unit, a good unit for helping hold objectives, but for the most part, we're not really going to take Valerian in our Solar Spearhead list. His datasheet attached to Wardens or Custodian Guard still make for a very tanky unit without needing as much detachment support. Even then, I would probably take a Blade Champion over Valerian. I do give him a 6.5 in the Solar Spearhead detachment. Our next detachment is the Shield Host Detachment. The detachment rule is Martial Mastery. At the start of the battle round, you can select one of the bullet points below. If you do so until the start of the next battle round, that bullet point effects apply. You could either have each Adeptus Custodes model with the Martial Catal ability, melee weapons equipped by models gain the critical hits on 5 ability, or you could have each Adeptus Custodes model with the Martial Catal ability, melee weapons equipped by the model gain +1 AP. This is one of the detachment rules that really powers up Valerian. It is not the critical hits on 5+ that helps him in his unit, it is the +1 AP on melee weapons. His melee weapon is rare with a base AP 3. With Martial Mastery, we can bring it up to AP 4. This kills Space Marines dead with no save. A great detachment rule for Valerian with Custodian Guard or Custodian Wardens. Just like all other detachments, Valerian can't equip any enhancements, so we'll move right on to the stratagems. Our first stratagem is Multi-Potentiality for 1 CP. This is our fallback, shoot and charge stratagem. Fallback, shoot and charge is great in any Adeptus Custodes detachment. It gives enemy units pause when charging our units. This can be extra potent with Valerian and Wardens. We get charged, pop the 4+ Funeral Pain, combined with -1 AP to the melee weapons and a possible -1 to the wound roll if the incoming attack strength is higher than toughness 6. We may even be able to throw -1 to the hit roll from a stratagem. Then in our turn, we use Multi-Potentiality to fall back, shoot that unit and charge right back in, or another unit to have fights first. Very strong. And that stratagem to give us -1 to the hit roll is called Unwavering Sentinels. For 1 CP in the fight phase, as long as we're on an objective marker we control, we can use this stratagem to give our unit -1 to the hit roll of incoming attacks in the fight phase. We do need to be on an objective we control, which does hurt this stratagem. When we do use it, along with all the other defensive buffs that we can stack on a Valerian and Wardens unit, it becomes almost impossible to kill this unit in the fight phase, especially for that phase when we have that 4+ Feel No Pain. I have used this unit to tank an entire Orc army. Their AP 1 weapons, along with -1 to the hit, 4+ Feel No Pain, and -1 to the wound, made it very hard to deal any decent damage. We also have Archaeotech Munitions for 1 CP in your shooting phase. This will give your ranged weapons either lethal hits or the Sustain Hits 1 ability. If we do have Valerian paired up with the Custodian Guard, we may want to consider using this if we need to take out an enemy unit with shooting. They can shoot twice, be on objective we control, and they can reroll wounds. We could have Sustain Hits 1 or lethal hits on all of those shots. A 5-man unit with 4 spears, 1 Vexilla with Valerian that can shoot twice is 22 shots, hitting on a 2+, strength 4, AP 1, damage 2. With Wardens or no double shoot, it is probably not worth the 1 CP. Last up is Arcane Genetic Alchemy for 1 CP. Any phase just after a mortal wound has been allocated to your unit from your army until the end of the phase, that unit has a 4+ Funeral Pain against mortal wounds. The best stratagem in all 6 detachments for mortal wound protection. We can wait to see how many mortal wounds have been inflicted before we use this stratagem. Valerian with Wardens are even harder to kill in this detachment. As I always say, do not let your opponent bait this stratagem out of you with a few mortal wounds and then hit us with their real mortal wound bomb. Ask questions. Which units do mortal wounds and how many mortal wounds are they capable of? I have always liked Valerian in the Talons of the Emperor list. After this deep dive, I want to try him in a shield host list more. The amount of defensive buffs we can stack along with the damage buffs make Valerian with a unit of Wardens a very interesting choice. He is our cheapest character as of August 2025 with 110 points. If you have Valerian collecting dust on your shelf, dust him off to give him a try in your next shield host game. I give Valerian a strong 9 out of 10 in this detachment. Let's look at the final score for Valerian and all of these detachments. We'll go from the worst to the best. The Solar Spearhead came in at 6.5 out of 10, Auric Champions the 7 out of 10, Lines of the Emperor 7.5, Null Maiden Vigil with an 8 out of 10, Talons of the Emperor 8.5 out of 10, and finally the best detachment for Valerian is the Shield Host at 9 out of 10. We will finish the video with some final thoughts. I really like Valerian in certain matchups. He can make the difference from losing a unit or most of the unit to a mostly intact unit. The reason we do not see him as much is his -1 incoming AP really depends on him being engaged in combat. Some lists will want nothing to do with throwing melee units into Valerian. Having some problems with Orks or another low AP high volume melee list, Valerian will be a nightmare for those lists. Subscribe for battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. Channel members gain early access to videos and an invite to the channel Discord. Like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.